I'm new to your page and I'm interested to know how to make kombucha.
This is good timing because we ran an Instagram poll a couple of weeks ago and 99% of the people wanted us to write this playbook on kombucha. So we did it, and
What does it cover?
so it has a whole bunch of stuff about how to brew kombucha at home, essentially, and everything that you need, that you don't need. There are things that you can do with kombucha. There are formulae. There are
When you fuck up?
sorry.
When you fuck up?
Yeah, like troubleshooting, like how do you know that you haven't fucked up, or like how do you know you have fucked up, or what kind of stuff to look out for. Why does your kombucha get moldy? What does that mold look like?
Is it safe to drink?
Sorry,
Is it safe to drink after it's become moldy?
Yeah, things like that, like health and safety stuff. There's stuff on carbonation. There are recipes that you can use to cook with kombucha, a whole bunch of stuff.
My kombucha is getting calm yeast in just a day. Never faced this till now. Is it the humidity?
It depends. I don't think it's the humidity as much as it is that the amount of starter and the ratio of it is not as high as it should be, and usually when the pH is low, then it has some chances of developing some calm yeast. Next.
I have some old but very good quality jasmine pearl leaf tea. Can I use this in fermentation?
Jasmine pearl leaf tea. So I would recommend just drink that tea. It sounds a bit too good to use for kombucha, but if you have access to lots of it, yes, absolutely, go ahead and make the kombucha. So the quality of the tea reflects in the quality of the kombucha that you end up with. So I would go with kind of like a mid-level good tea, so not like really crap tea, but not tea that you're paying lots of money by the gram for. So yeah, just use a regular tea and you'll have like pretty good kombucha.
Minimum quantity starter required for 1F. Minimum quantity fruit required for good fizz and flavor in 2F.
Okay, there are two different questions. So I'm going to answer the first one first. Minimum quantity required of the starter for first fermentation, I would always suggest going with about 20% as the minimum. So 1/5 of your total volume of that batch of kombucha should be the starter. If I know some people make it with 10%, some people make it with 15%. I like using more because especially in some conditions, it like weather-wise and temperature-wise, it makes a lot more sense, and it makes your kombucha batch safer to do a higher starter percentage. And in colder climates, what this also helps with is it increases the speed at which your kombucha ferments, and it also makes it safer until the pH of the kombucha drops enough so that there's no mold, that it's fermenting properly, the yeast is eating all the sugars, etc. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay, what's the second question?
Second question is minimum quantity fruit required for good fizz and flavor in 2F booch.
So carbonation, first of all, is a completely different ball game. It's a whole science by itself. It's kind of like a balancing act between lots of different variables, and to move each one of them to get certain kind of results. And I did a whole live on this on Instagram a couple of years ago, so I'll link that below that you can watch, and that will explain how carbonation works. I'm not going to address that here, but I will talk about the quantity of fruit or any other flavoring that you want to add to your second fermentation for kombucha. And for that, I would recommend just playing around. This is the part, second fermentation is the part that you can experiment with, you can go nuts, you can add in a whole bunch of different kinds of ingredients to see what you like, what you don't like. This is the stuff that you really can play with. So feel free to experiment. There's no minimum quantity or maximum quantity. Just make sure that if you're using fruit that already has sugar in it, that will affect the carbonation, and so it'll also affect the health and safety of the carbonation and like bottles exploding and all that sort of stuff. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, if you like more cinnamon, use more cinnamon. If you like less ginger, use less ginger. So there's no rules around how much you should add, and tastes differ, so use as much as you want. Next.
Can I pasteurize kombucha if I boil it? I worked in the kitchen and I don't want the flavor to change. It keeps fermenting. Cheers.
This is an interesting one. So yeah, I understand that it keeps fermenting and that you'd like it to be consistent. If you pasteurize kombucha though, it kind of kills all the good guys, and so you want to maybe keep them in there, and just like the whole half the point, actually, maybe not the whole point, but half the point of a good kombucha is the good microbes that go into your system and help you with a bunch of stuff. But that doesn't mean that you can't pasteurize it. Technically, you can. You'll still get the postbiotics from the fermentation process, but if you want the probiotics, then you shouldn't pasteurize it. But that said, don't be afraid to cook with your kombucha, because fermentation is also flavor, and so use it to deglaze your pans, to make sauces out of, make reductions, just put into stews, kind of like how you would work with beer or wine in cooking. So yeah, use it like that. Next.
Oh my god, I have added double the amount of sugar in a tea. Will I get any problems?
You won't have as many problems as you would if you had put in half the amount of sugar. So it's not a bad place to start. What you might just end up doing is brewing like a concentrated version of kombucha, of higher concentrate of sugar in the kombucha, which means that your yeast will be overactive. But what you can do is add a bit more tea to balance that, and then you can just save half of it in your fridge and then dilute that and feed it to your next batch. Next.
Can I refrigerate a scoby with some starter tea for about 2 months so I can brew it later?
Short answer, yes you can. And I was asked to not do this in more than 3 sentences, so I will say yes, you can. You can store it in the fridge and you can use it to brew a batch next time. I could answer in a lot more detail, but next time. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, next.
What's the max number of scoby and starter liquid quantity in a 5-liter jar for scoby hotel?
For scoby hotel, I would recommend also taking out the older scoby and leaving in the newer ones. So I've seen some scoby hotels that are just like chock full of scoby / pellicle. But yeah, you don't need that many actually. And half the point is that you're constantly feeding, and it's somewhere that you just like safely keeping these extra scoby that you have, but also that you're using that super sour liquid that it's in, the old fermented kombucha, that will help you jumpstart your next batch with like a lower pH starter, and that helps with reducing the pH of your entire batch so that it doesn't get moldy, it doesn't get calm yeast, it doesn't get all of that nasty stuff. So you don't actually need to save all those SCOBY. You just have maybe like 3, 4, 5. You can even just do this in the fridge in a jar, and that's also okay. We just wrote a playbook on kombucha, so if you have any more questions, you should be looking that up, because that covers like a whole bunch of stuff. It's the longest one that we've written so far, and it covers a whole bunch of stuff from my experience of brewing kombucha for, what is it now, like 15 plus years. 3 out of those were brewing commercial kombucha, so there's a bunch of stuff in there. Okay, next.
My kombucha brews are not producing any new scobies. Does that indicate so?
Does that indicate what?
Oh, it says that indicates so. So what?
Okay, I think there might be a word limit on that. But what I'm guessing has happened is that the SCOBY is not viable anymore and is not producing extra cellulose, which means that it is not active. And if this continues with like multiple batches, then it's very likely that your SCOBY is not doing the stuff that it should be doing. So it's a good idea to just get like a fresh starter or a SCOBY from somewhere else and then start again.
Used an old whiskey quart bottle for kombucha, but surprisingly it became totally flat.
Okay, so using whiskey bottles with a cork is a really good idea for carbonation. It is one of the safer ways to carbonate any fermented drink. I did a whole live on this, which I'll link below, but it's complicated. So it's not just about the bottle. Bottle is one of the variables that influences carbonation. There are other things like how active your kombucha was, how long it was brewed for, how much sugar there is in it, how much, what flavoring you've used, how much of that flavoring you've used, and how much oxygen it has access to. All these sort of things influence carbonation. So what I would recommend is to continue to use that whiskey bottle with the cork and experiment with different batches and see how your results are. Experiment with different flavors, and yeah, you'll get an idea of what worked and what didn't work. So yeah. Okay,
this is a good one. Ants got into my SCOBY hotel. I should chuck it out, right? Those SCOBY seems okay.
So ants will probably die in your SCOBY hotel. So what you can do is fish them out. They're not as gross as maggots. So that's what I would do if I were you, if I wanted to save it. They're basically going to be pickled ants, but they're not going to ruin your kombucha. You can wash them off, like just rinse the SCOBY in drinking water and it'll be fine. And the liquid, if there are any ants floating in there, you can just strain them out and then use that kombucha, continue to use that kombucha as your starter. Next.
How to separate SCOBY layers? I feel like I'm hurting it.
No, you're not hurting it. The SCOBY doesn't have any feelings, unlike us. It also doesn't have any pain receptors. You can cut it with scissors. You can take a knife to it. As long as that is clean, you can peel them apart. You can tear them. You can do whatever you want with it. You also don't need a SCOBY to brew kombucha, you just need old kombucha. So don't get too attached. It's nice to give your scoby a name, but it's cellulose. It's the stuff that paper and cloth are made out of. So it's the same stuff. It's kind of, think of it kind of as the home for the microbes that ferment the kombucha. That is not what ferments the kombucha. The microbes live inside it, and they also live in the liquid. So you don't get too attached. It's
Can a diabetic patient have kombucha?
good question. So I'm not a medical professional. I have no qualifications to answer that from a medical perspective, and about the safety of somebody who's diabetic drinking kombucha. However, what I can talk about is how sugar behaves in kombucha, and if you're looking at at consuming less sugar, then this is a good way to do it. So one is that you want the microbes from the kombucha, which exist even in a little teaspoon of kombucha. You don't have to drink the entire bottle of kombucha. You can dilute like 1 tablespoon of kombucha in a glass of water and drink that. That's kind of how we so you're also getting the microbes, but you're not getting the sugar. A lot of the sugar is incidentally consumed by the microbes, by the yeasts. So what is left at the end, if brewed properly, is not as much as the sweet tea that you start out with. So the fermentation process, and the longer you ferment it, the more sugar gets eaten up. So a lot of that sugar is converted into different sorts of organic acids, and that's why over fermented kombucha tastes sour. And so if you're watching how much sugar you're taking in for various reasons, whether you're on a diet, whether you're avoiding it, whether you're, and a whole host of medical reasons, using it using the sour kombucha and diluting that and drinking it, or even using that in dressings as stuff that you cook with, all of that is our options. So consider all these different ways to consume kombucha, even if you are watching how much sugar you are consuming.
Next.
Have you ever tried barrel-aged kombucha?
So I haven't tried barrel-aged kombucha, as in I have tried it when somebody made it, but I haven't made it myself because I'm impatient, and it takes a while to age it, but definitely go for it. It's a good experiment. It changes the flavor profile of it. It makes it deeper and gives it this woody, caramelly flavor. Just make sure that you've bunged up any holes, any airways, and things like that, because the kombucha will continue to ferment inside the barrel too. So just like you would ferment wine in barrels in the old times, you definitely can ferment kombucha. Just taste every so often and decide when you drink it and you like how it tastes, then you can bottle it.